What's up, guys? Welcome back. Good evening, Howard. What's up? Welcome back. Good to see you. Hope you had a good weekend. Tonight, we've got a really exciting stream with the Graceful Shark, Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides, and also a surprise activity. We'll take a look at the International Shark Attack file. So I'm excited to dive into that in more detail, but how was your weekend? I'm trying to think if I had... I think for the most part mine was pretty low-key, but was able to kind of catch up on some shark reading, and hey Minjus, welcome back! And I downloaded the SSI diving app. So I had a fun weekend just kind of like uploading my equipment to it. So this is, well, it's a really cool app. You get to talk about like all your stuff. Oh, music might be a wee bit loud. Yeah, let me go ahead and change that. This is Okami. Here, let's have that. That should be better. Let me know if that's okay. So sorry about that being a little loud. Let's go back to the Graceful Shark. Thank you for that, but I hope you had a good weekend as well, Minjas. Please let me know in the comments if you guys did anything exciting. I'm really excited that it's May now. So right now at this time of year, we have dusky smoothhounds. I believe they begin to pup this time of year in the Chesapeake Bay. And then in later May, we have the sandbar shark, Carcharhinus plumbeus. Chesapeake Bay is their primary nursing ground, so I'm really excited for them to be here. It's their most important nursing ground in the world, I believe. So yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, Howard, I'm glad you had a great weekend. Oh, Minjas, yeah. I've never played Okami either, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. And okay, awesome. I'm glad it sounds good now. So yeah. So I think I was just kind of sharing, I was updating my SSI diving app since I'm starting to get back into diving. So there's like a section where you can add like your equipment. So I'm really excited. I was kind of playing around with that this weekend, and then just learning more of the online portion of the classes, which is fun. So and then also just reading up on Chesapeake Bay shark species, because the water is finally starting to get more and more warm, and it's going to be the time for a lot of our summertime species to come back. So it used to be that our peak diversity is 10 species, but because we're seeing more blacktip and spinner sharks in the bay itself, in the lower Chesapeake Bay, the diversity is up to 12, which is really cool, because that's a change that has happened in my lifetime. Actually, maybe it's not that cool, because that kind of might be a global warming thing, but anyway. Summer mode, yeah. I'm super psyched. So, but Howard, thank you so much. Speaking of summer, I love this this sunlit scene with the Graceful Shark, Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides, with a blackjack, Carcharhinus lugubris. Love those names actually. But I love the lighting on this. This looks really cool. I really appreciate how you captured the Graceful Shark's black tips. It has subtle black tips on its fins. And then my girlfriend made a comment today. She noticed the hammerhead in the background. So there's a hammerhead in the top left. And she caught it before I did, which is really cool. So it looks... I love that little detail there. So this is super cool. Love the just the Graceful Shark's overall look, the angle, and just like capturing the sun. So also on the jack as well. So I'm excited to get into this species. Also, Howard, thank you for sending over the Graceful Shark's jaws. So this is a cool photograph of a Graceful Shark's jaw set. And what's interesting that strikes out to me is that both the upper and lower teeth are actually quite narrow. Like they're kind of like needly. So the lower teeth in a lot of Carcharhinus species, they have like the very like spear-like lower teeth, but then the upper teeth can be a bit broader, like in sandbar sharks. But for the Graceful Shark, it's really cool to see that the upper teeth are also spear-like. So that suggests a diet of maybe primarily fish, and maybe this species doesn't really handle larger prey items. So we'll get into that in a little bit more. So I think what we'll do for tonight is we'll start out with kind of like just the broad overview of the graceful shark. Oh, nice, Howard. Piscivorous dentition, excellent. So yeah, that's really cool to see that as far as like those upper teeth being narrow, because again, like they're usually, or not usually, but in a lot of Carcharhinus, a lot of the bigger ones, they can be a bit broader. So so what we'll do tonight is we'll go through the graceful shark's like kind of general profile, because this is a species I'm not as familiar with, being like this is Indo-Pacific species and really not a well-known species. And it's also kind of confusingly named. The Latin name Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides is unfortunately extremely close to the gray reef shark's name, which is Carcharhinus amblyrhynchos. So that's like a difference of like 3 letters, or actually just, what is it, 2 letters? 3 letters. So there's that, and then also if you like search for graceful shark on YouTube or like anywhere, it's just it's such a unspecific name. I'm actually have no idea why this one is called the graceful shark, because what's fun is that a lot of sharks are ascribed the attribute of graceful. So a lot of like video and photographs, like online at least, like there's many graceful sharks, and it's like the tiger shark is a graceful shark, the white shark is a graceful shark. So unfortunately, graceful shark is not a very descriptive name. This species, being in Australia, it has earned a different common name called the Queensland shark. So this one in Australia is sometimes called the Queensland shark. That kind of reminds me of sand tigers. In Australia, they're called grey nurse sharks. So I'm interested. The teeth seem much more stereotypically shark-like. Actually, that's a good point and a good observation, because those broad teeth that I was talking about for larger Carcharhinus, I think I mentioned it on the stream before, but broad teeth, like triangle-shaped teeth, they're actually rare in the shark world, because most shark teeth are kind of thin or like spear-shaped, but the broad teeth, like bull sharks and white sharks, those are really strange as far as sharks go. Like the ability to handle and dismember large prey items is kind of like unusual. If you count all 500 species, it's kind of like an unusual thing. Even though they're as charismatic as they are, it's kind of unusual as far as biodiversity goes. So, but yeah, so Queensland shark or graceful shark. So Howard, we'll go back here. Sorry about that. Howard, thanks again for this really cool drawing. I love the lighting on this, and I think I remember a little bit of this technique from. There's a couple sharks that had this technique, but it just looks really, really good. So thank you so much for sharing this. I also love this little detail of like the bottles on the seabed here. So between the sunlight and the bottles, you can tell it's like a shallow water environment. So it's super cool. It just is a great drawing. So thank you so much for sending this over, though. Yeah. So, graceful shark, let's see. I think we'll start out with fish base, just because we don't have, like IUCN Ambryllis is more about conservation, and I kind of want to see a general profile of the species. So we'll do the graceful shark general overview first, then we'll kind of take an e-break to the International Shark Attack file. I've been curious about checking this out in more detail. And I kind of wanted to explore like how it's set up. It's been a while since I've seen it. It came up a couple times because there's a couple sharks that are rarely implicated in bites. So I'm like, yeah, let's just check it out. And this is probably a good night to do it, because unfortunately this species, the graceful shark, I thought it would have quite a lot of footage because it's a shallow water Carcharhinus in the Indo-Pacific, like beautiful coral reefs. But it really, there isn't a clip on YouTube. There's no footage of it. Like the few clips that are ascribed to graceful shark either are not footage at all, or they're misidentified species. There's one clip, for example, called Graceful Shark in Looe Key, and Looe Key is in Florida, and that is not in the species distribution. So that was a misidentified shark, or just maybe some shark that the YouTuber described as graceful. So. But that being said, I think it's a good night to check out the International Shark Attack file as kind of like a supplement, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of the science lately. But after we do explore that, we'll kind of poke around the graceful shark's scientific history too. So we'll kind of go back and forth, which I'm excited for. But I hope you guys have something good to drink or eat. And yeah, we'll get started. So, fish base, the key kind of like backbone of any fish information. This is a great starting point. Graceful Shark, Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides, discovered in 1934. So let's see. I am curious, amblyrhynchoides, Greek suffix meaning like resembling or having the form of, similar to C. amblyrhynchoides. Okay, I see. So that's actually a little irritating. So the author of this shark said it looked like the scientific name means, oh, it looks like Carcharhinus amblyrhynchos, but it's not. So we'll just call it Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides. And the Latin translation is it looks like. So that's, I'm going to call it, that is a terrible scientific name. I'm so sorry, but it is a terrible scientific name. Because it doesn't describe the species. I mean, I guess it does indirectly. It's like, it looks like a gray reef shark, but as far as direct names go, it's not descriptive about what the species is, and that's unfortunate. So, Carcharhinus amblyrhynchos, gray reef shark. I'm not exactly sure what amblyrhynchos translates to, but when you change the suffix to amblyrhynchoides, it means it looks like amblyrhynchos, so that's irritating. But anyway, and what's kind of odd about it too is I don't recall gray reef sharks having the black tips. So here's some graceful shark photos. And I kind of feel like the black tips make this distinct. I don't think gray reef sharks have that. I think they are more like a solid color, if I remember correctly. Gray reef sharks are the famous, famously, I don't want to necessarily say aggressive, but they're famously like, those are the template sharks to study shark aggression behavior or shark warning signs. So like gray reef sharks have been studied to swim in very exaggerated ways when they're pissed off, like when they're feeling uncomfortable, or if they are feeling threatened. They will arch their backs and swim in a very unusual way as a warning to others, like, hey, get out of here. I'm not happy that you're here. Just like I don't like your presence. Just like it's kind of an aggressive warning sign. Fins pointing down is also a part of that. So gray reef sharks angling their fins downward and arching their backs and swimming in an exaggerated way is a posture of aggression, or a posture of I don't know if it's like aggression or discomfort or a mix of both. But it's kind of interesting. I'm curious, like if this particular species, the graceful shark, is so physically similar apparently to the gray reef shark that I'm kind of wonder behaviorally if maybe it shares some of those attributes, because they do live in the same area and they are both the same genus, Carcharhinus. So, but two different species, so could behave differently. But just random thoughts about that. So we have black markings on the pectoral fins and the caudal fin, and black tips on the second and first dorsal fins. Beautiful head. I know this is a deceased specimen, but really kind of like beautiful head, not exaggerated in any way. It's kind of like the classic shark build, which is cool to see. This is kind of a worse photo of a deceased individual, but you can still see the black tips. And then let's just say drawing, so we'll kind of go back to the other photos. Let's see, now I'll just click on ones that seem interesting. This one in life. Okay, so you can probably see, since the black tips, I know it's not in this photo, but in life as the shark is swimming, that does kind of look like a gray reef shark. So I can kind of see in life how the species can be confused. Interesting. Oh, very cool. So this species apparently has a precaudal pit. So this is kind of an odd feature that some sharks have. So it's that crescent shape indentation right before the tail, like right before the caudal fin. So it's pretty interesting. Oh, this is really, it's kind of a really cool shot of the jaws right there. And with those, this is great terminology, Howard, the piscivorous teeth. So look at that. Double rows of functional teeth on the lower jaw. Hey, quackers, what's up? Welcome back. Let's see. I appreciate that. Hope you had a good nap. I appreciate that comment. So. Oh my gosh! I appreciate that, Minjas. Sorry, the scientist's name is horrible. I appreciate that. So. The caudal. As far as function, I'm not exactly sure what it is for, and I actually have no idea what the function would be for it. Because it's I'm curious if it might be. My guess is like I wonder if it's like kind of like a strange mutation that kind of has evolved with certain species. I don't see particularly. I don't see a potential function with the precaudal pit, but you know what? Let me look that up really quick. I'm actually quite curious about that. I'm just going to look that up, and we'll go back to the jaw set of this smaller graceful shark. So, because that's an excellent question. Let's see, precaudal pit. Oops, sorry. It's I mean, because it is used to identify sharks, but that's not exactly, you know, how the shark uses it. So, yeah, I don't really know. I'll have to get back to you on that because just doing a quick search, but I'm really not sure what this would be for. So my guess, I'm just going to make this guess, is that it could be a mutation that was not really deleterious. Like, it just didn't really take away from the species, but it didn't really add to the species either. That's kind of my guess in terms of like what it is, as far as like some attribute that it didn't really affect natural selection and evolution, so it just kind of was something that appeared and it's not really affecting anything. But I don't know. I could be totally wrong about that. So that's a great question. It's just like the position of that and the angling of that is just so strange, because it's like, if anything, if it does have a functional use, it could potentially be something to do with like maneuverability for the caudal fin or maneuverability for swimming, but other than that, I'm not really sure. Now, this is an interesting photo. I'm just going to catch up on the comments really quick. Oh, Quackers checked out Endless Ocean. I'm glad you liked it. Like it's a cool game series. So. Oh, and Minjas, maybe some sort of hydrodynamics thing. Also, thank you, Howard. Audio fuzzy. Sorry about that. Appreciate you letting me know. Sorry about that. I have had trouble clearly of like trying to find a solution to this. So I'll keep working on that. But it's become a tradition, unfortunately. So. But yeah, hydrodynamics, like that is a really good guess, because when you think about all fins of all sharks, like they are deliberately shaped, which is really cool in terms of like the dorsal fin and how the size of the first dorsal fin, how it relates to the second dorsal fin, how those relate to the pectoral fins, the pelvic fin, the anal fin, if there is an anal fin on a shark, or the caudal fin, and the shark's body shape. They all are kind of like, it's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It's like if say if all sharks were kind of like, were made out of like X amount of clay or something, and you like squish clay in certain shapes or pull clay in certain shapes, like you're going to push and pull from those other features like the fins to get the perfect shape for that shark's lifestyle. So for the great white shark, robust body, huge pectoral fins, huge dorsal fin, lunate caudal fin, everything about it is perfect for a high energy, like, rapid attack seal, like munching lifestyle. Or a frilled shark being very elongate with very low fins, kind of like small rounded pectoral fins, extremely long caudal fin, perfect shape for a deep water, energy conserving, it just lunges its jaws out to grab fish lifestyle. So it's really cool. I mean, like, because I love that just as like teeth can reveal a lot about sharks. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Minjus. I saw that the fuzziness wasn't as bad as it has been. Awesome. I appreciate that. I'm glad it's improving. So, but just as like the teeth, you can infer lifestyle about sharks from the teeth. You can do that with the fins too, which is so cool. Like, just based on the fin shape, the size, you can infer a lot about like, where does this live? Like, what does this do? It's really interesting. So, but oh my gosh, Quackers, Sharks in Endless Ocean. Are you playing Endless Ocean 1, 2, or the Luminous one on the Switch? Because I remember on 1, there's a great biodiversity. I remember cat sharks. I think Hammerhead. A great Hammerhead was the first one that really freaked me out and excited me at the same time in that game. So. I pulled this picture up, by the way. This is really interesting to me. So this is a graceful shark, but this is a larger individual, and its fin is actually shaped very similarly to a bull shark, to the point where, like, oh, that's actually kind of, at first glance, that'd be kind of hard to tell. I think it was Roy who said last week that graceful shark looks like a cross between a bull shark and a blacktip. And he's not wrong. I mean, blacktips have like the pointy pectoral fins and pointy fins in general, and the pectoral fins in the graceful shark are very much like similarly shaped. But the dorsal fin looks like a bull shark shape. In this particular individual, the body looks a little bit more robust, and then this species has more black tips. But again, what's kind of cool is like in this photo, that looks more like a gray reef shark. So this species is kind of interesting. And look at this photo. Now that we're comparing, that looks like a pudgy blacktip. This is a pretty interesting shark because it's like it shares some features with its cousins, and then but there's like a butt there. Like there's something that's kind of like, wait a minute. So like for bull sharks, it's like, okay, it's got the dorsal fin, but like the pectoral fins are kind of too sharp. Or like for the blacktip shark, oh, it has like the sharp pectoral fins and the tips, but it's a little too chonky. It's a little too robust to be a blacktip. So it's kind of cool to see this so far with the graceful shark. We'll see if there's any more photos. I do want to check this out because this is interesting jaw set from what appears to be a bit of a large individual. I want to compare this with the one that Howard sent over. Now, some of the difference in the shape can be preservation method or how the jaws were cleaned. So cartilage, since it's very flexible, you can angle the jaws in a certain shape. But I think I would venture to guess this is a larger individual, just because the jaws do look a little bit more robust and the teeth look a little bit broader. And in this one, where the jaws look a little bit smaller, the teeth do look a bit more needly. And what's kind of cool, I forget if this is called ontogenetic dentition. I forget if that's the correct term, but there are some shark species that do change their tooth type in their lifetime. So, and that's kind of like us. Like, we do that too in a strange way. I mean, like, maybe we don't change our tooth type, but we do change our teeth. Like when we're kids, like, we have this first set of like loose teeth and they all fall out and we replace them with the new adult teeth. Kind of like in a bizarre parallel, some sharks, I mean, it's not a good parallel because our tooth systems are very different. But some sharks have a juvenile set of teeth where maybe they start out very needly, and then as they get bigger, they shift into larger teeth that are capable of handling larger prey items. With the graceful shark, I would still say these teeth on the top are still rather, they're not as triangular as other species. They're still a little bit more pyramidal in shape. So I would still say this is, like Howard's original comment, a piscivorous species primarily. But it is cool to see that those teeth are a little bit more robust. So, but yeah. It's a bit tummy heavy, yeah. Oh, also, yeah, actually, Quackers, you and I might have been watching the same gameplay, because I've had the Wii, there's a Let's Play, long play, of the 2007 Wii Endless Ocean. I've had that on over the whole, like, pretty much the whole weekend, as I was, like, doing my diving, like, my online diving classes, so, or the online portion of my classes, so, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, respect, that's awesome. Right, let's go back to the main profile for graceful sharks. Let's see. So depth range 0 to 75 meters. So that's actually pretty shallow for sharks, as far as sharks go. We have the range, which is in the Indo-Pacific. So India, Australia, Indonesia, Madagascar, Red Sea a little bit. Let's see. Pectoral, dorsal, and pelvic fins, and ventral lobe of caudal fin black or dusky tipped. Biology. A little-known inshore coastal pelagic species. Feeds mainly on fishes, also takes crustaceans and cephalopods. Viviparous, so live birth, probably taken in fisheries where it occurs. Utilized fresh and dried, salted for human consumption. Fins used in the oriental shark fin trade. Liver oil processed for vitamins. Okay. 3 in a litter, 2 to 8 pups in a litter. That's actually kind of a low reproductive rate, so that's a little concerning. Gestation period of 9 to 10 months. That's pretty normal for sharks, but does the shark take a break? A lot of Carcharhinus do take breaks in between their gestation periods. So let's see. That's all we got for fish base. Let's check out shark references, which also sometimes has good background information. Let's see. Oh, no, that's really confusing. Oh, actually, no, I know where this comes from. So it's Graceful Shark, Gray Reef Shark, Queensland Shark. But this Gray Reef Shark name, this comes from the fact that I think this used to be considered a Gray Reef Shark. So the actual Gray Reef Shark and this shark were considered to be the same species. And then in 1934, Whitley, the author, successfully separated them and said, no, this is a different species. This is its own thing. So Graceful Shark or Queensland Shark. But it looks like those are the only two English names. So just scanning for any new pieces of information. Oh, hey, this is a photo that I think you sent over. I think it's the same jaw set, which is super cool. Let's see that. And then this is interesting. These teeth are serrated, which I think is a little odd, or like, not odd, but it's not super common for teeth that are primarily piscivorous, like, because when we think of other sharks, like I think of sand tiger sharks, they don't have serrations, you know, and they're a big fish eater. So this is really cool to see. It's really cool to see like a more spear-like tooth type, but you still have those serrations. So nasty bite. It's really cool. Let's see. And yeah, the lower teeth these are a great example of why it strikes me as odd, because the lower teeth are kind of that classic shape, at least for me, they're that classic shape of, they're very smooth edged. So like a smooth continuous blade in this like spear-like shape. But the upper teeth have those serrations, so pretty interesting morphology there. So, let's see if I have any more profiles. This is a cute picture of a juvenile graceful shark. Let's see. Okay, characteristic features. I'm just going to take a drink of water. Okay, so 1, the second dorsal fin origin over anal fin origin. So that's actually really cool. So these two, the fin positioning is equal. So that's like sandbar sharks. Sandbar sharks have equal fin positioning. So for the second dorsal fin and anal fin. So there's that as a identifying feature. Interdorsal ridge absent. So that's a huge thing for Carcharhinus sharks. A huge portion of them have ridges, and they're called ridgeback sharks. And a huge portion of them don't. I'm pretty sure bull sharks don't. I'm pretty sure bull sharks are smooth-backed. And look, apparently the graceful shark is smooth-backed as well. So, the snout short, pointed, viewed from underneath. Internarial space 1.2 times preoral snout length. Upper labial furrow is very short. So this is where it starts to get tricky because you have to kind of eyeball it or not eyeball it, but you have to like be very perceptive in terms of like the relationship of the snout length to how do they do that? Nose length. So the internarial space means nose length. So the space between the nares, or the space between the nostrils. So the snout length, the length between the nostrils is slightly larger than the snout length. So in life, like if you're scuba diving, that is a very difficult feature to find, if you can find it at all. That's really hard to tell. So that's something you could maybe potentially tell if like in a lab or something, but in scuba diving that would be really difficult to tell. So fins mostly with black tips, anal fins sometimes plain, upper and lower teeth with narrow erect cusps. So let's see, we already kind of have the color. Maximum size is 178 centimeters, so that's about 5 feet. Do I have that right? I'm getting a little bit better from meters to feet. Let's do centimeters to feet. I think that's 5 feet. 178. 5.5 feet. Okay, it's starting to get better. Starting to get better with that conversion. So, let's see. Found to at least 50 meters. Juvenile shell is 25 meters. A inshore coastal pelagic species. Eats bony fish, but also cephalopods and crustaceans. No difference on the pupping, so I wonder if they do pup yearly. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Oh, check this out. Similar species. The Carcharhinus lymbatus, the common blacktip shark, or just the blacktip shark. Blacktips have more robust body versus more slender, and moderately short snout versus moderately long. That's a little tricky because that's not... I would kind of say blacktips are more slender, so that's a little tricky actually. And then Carcharhinus tilstoni, the Australian blacktip shark, more robust body, moderately short snout. Oh yeah, that's a little tricky. I feel like that's kind of... I don't know if I 100% agree with that, to be honest. So let's see if we can find more general information. Fishes of Australia. This is a photo, but it's not really information on the species. I think the rest are... Oh, shark water. Let's see. Shark water website. Caught by bycatch. Let's see. Can't make that photograph larger. That image does not look correct. This species is already tricky. Let's zoom in on that really quick. That does not look like the same species. That really does not look like the same species. That almost looks like a silky shark. Just because it has that rounded fin, it's so far back on the body. It does have black tips, but if this is a graceful shark, that's really, really slender, and that looks very different from these other photographs. Yeah, I don't think that's the same species. Interesting. But let's read this report. This is because this is usually pretty accurate. Let's see, Graceful Shark, IUCN Red List is least concern. Graceful Shark is a medium-sized species distributed throughout coastal waters of the Indo-West Pacific. It is occasionally taken as bycatch in commercial fisheries throughout its distribution. In Australia, the fisheries it is taken are well managed and catches are low. Therefore, the Graceful Shark is assessed as globally near threatened, and in Australia as least concerned. Let's see. The Graceful Shark occurs in continental shelf waters throughout the Indo-West Pacific. It occurs as far west as the Gulf of Aden, as far as north as China and Vietnam, and as far south as and east as Australia. Within Australia, it is found in tropical waters from Broome to Townsville, although its occurrence on the east coast of Queensland is questionable, which is kind of interesting because, again, the shark's name is the Queensland Shark, the Graceful Shark, also known as the Queensland Shark. Within Australia, there's currently no information on population size, structure, or trend for the species. The Graceful Shark is often mistaken for the black-tipped shark, the Australian black-tipped shark, and the pig-eye shark. And this is so funny to me because it's like, bull shark should be on there because pig-eye shark looks a lot like a bull shark. And this one's interesting as far as like there's just subtle differences. This is actually a really great case study of how tricky Carcharhinus as a genus can be. Where it's very, very difficult. Even like experts can't really tell the Carcharhinus apart. Like if they are in parts of the world where there's two extremely similar species, it's really hard to tell them apart. So, oh, there you go. Identification issues make it difficult to assess the graceful shark. Declines in similar coastal shark species throughout the rest of its range suggests the graceful shark may have declined globally by 20 to 30%. The graceful shark is taken as bycatch in northern Australian fisheries. Threat is likely minimal because of strict management measures. Let's see. It is encountered in gillnet and longline fisheries throughout the remainder of its distribution, however data is sparse. Let's see. Longevity is unknown. Yeah, so this one is more mysterious than I thought. There's and again, it's really cool to see opportunities for future shark scientists. We've covered so many species on this stream that just need information. Like we really don't have information on quite a few species, and looks like the graceful shark might be a good candidate. Let's check out this photo. This even looks wrong because this individual has a silver tip. And no black tips. This is so confusing. Like I think this is the wrong species. This image, because this literally could be Carcharhinus alba marginatus, which is the silver tip shark. Ugh, is there any more? Okay, this is tricky. This one's really tricky. That's actually kind of concerning how tricky it is. What's also concerning is, so in that other report we read that the global status was near threatened. Looks like as of 2020, it's vulnerable. So this species actually needs more help. So we'll check it out in more detail. Let's see. Oh, interesting. I'm just reading out the comments. Maybe the adolescent survival rate is just higher, so less energy is put into baby quantity. That's a really, really good guess. So I read an interesting thing. So there's a good book. I don't agree with a couple of the opinions in it, but it is an excellent book called Shark Ecology and Conservation. And I was reading about survival strategies where sharks that have a lot of pups tend to be in coastal areas where there could be a lot of predators, but there's no real need to mitigate risk with the predators because there's huge litters. But some sharks, like the sandbar shark, don't have a lot of pups. And so they go into estuaries where the lower salinity actually helps block out big predators like the great white shark or the tiger shark. Like the lower salinities of the estuaries create like a safe zone for that species, which has small litters, and the small litters, like you can't really like roll the dice on them, like by using the estuary, you're kind of giving those smaller litters a better chance, which is kind of cool. I never thought about it like that before. But sandbar sharks and that which have small litters enter estuaries potentially as a means to mitigate risk, not just from predation, but also, well, I guess from just predation, really. So it's giving each of those pups a better shot at survival. And it's kind of more important for that particular species because of the very fact it has a small litter, whereas sharks with big litters, kind of have evolved to be less concerned with the estuary or the need of the estuary. Unfortunately, that still doesn't do well against fishing pressure, but it's pretty interesting stuff. So, let's check out the conservation needs of the graceful shark, because I'm very curious if your theory is correct, and I'm also curious if it has a break, because a lot of Carcharhinus take a reproductive break. So it's like they will carry pups for like a year, and then they'll take a year off, just to build back up their energy. So let's see. The graceful shark is a medium-sized coastal shark that occurs in the Indo-West Pacific from Australia to Somalia in nearshore habitats to a depth of 50 meters. The biology and ecology of the species is poorly known, but is thought to have moderate productivity like other medium-sized carcharhinids. It is rarely targeted and mainly taken as bycatch and comprises only small proportions of catches in commercial and small-scale gillnet, longline, and trawl fisheries. Within Australian waters, the fisheries that take the graceful shark are well managed, but through the rest of its range, management of shark populations is mostly lacking. We can infer that given its medium size and presence in coastal waters of Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean, where coastal fishing is intensive and extensive, it is likely threatened. Based on ongoing declines in species of similar life histories and catchability in fisheries, the graceful shark is suspected to have undergone a population reduction of 30 to 49% over the past 3 generation lengths, 33 years, due to levels of exploitation, and it is assessed as vulnerable. So that's a good, more conservative estimate. We do appreciate that. Habitat and ecology. Just catching up on some comments. So, oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your comment on estuaries. So, thank you. Yeah, they're really interesting systems, and I think they get overlooked for a couple reasons. Like, estuaries are not. They're not as colorful or flashy or frankly attractive as like coral reefs, and so I feel like coral reefs, make for great. It's very easy, and like coral reefs are great, but it's very easy to kind of like show how coral reefs are like beautiful and important, and like places like estuaries, like the Chesapeake Bay is famously like, like an albatross of conservation in some ways. It's like it's famously like a system that's been so like polluted, and it's getting better. It's incremental, but there have been some success stories with the Chesapeake Bay. Like blue crabs have come back. Good management have brought back striped bass at one point. Water quality is improving. Even when I in my time as kind of like a marine like outreach person, like beginning Dr. Jaws, water quality has improved in some parts of the bay, which is really cool. So, but the point being, like, estuaries are not as flashy, and they're not as like appealing in a lot of ways, because usually they are areas, because they're so close to human population, they are areas that get very polluted, or even if they're not polluted, they are very like muddy, turbid waters in certain parts of the estuary, so they're not very flashy and they're not really first of mind. But estuaries are also simultaneously some of the most productive nursery grounds for sharks in the world. Like, they're really important habitats for a lot of species, and not just in the United States, of course. Like the Amazon estuary is a huge thing. Australian estuaries, Cambodia, estuaries are everywhere, but there's particular places like America and the United States, and America and Australia and Amazon, like Brazil, like they're hugely critical ecosystems for shark pups. So it's really cool to think about. But for the graceful shark, which seems to be like a strictly coastal species. Yeah, I don't see. Oh no, here we go. Estuary. So it's tagged as an estuary species, seagrass species, mangrove species. Mangroves. That's actually really cool. So the graceful shark is demersal and pelagic and occurs inshore on continental and insular shelves from the surface to a depth of 50 meters. So 50 or 75 meters. Still shallow either way. Let's see. No age estimate for the species. The only data available are from the sister species. And that gets tricky because it's like sister species may be good for like a template, but that's tricky to make conservation policy when you don't know exactly what the species is as far as like how old it can be, what sexual maturity is. So yeah, man, this species really is there for the taking for any future shark scientist who also may be in this chat, like for anyone who wants to work with sharks or any future commenters. This is, I feel like we've covered at least like 20 sharks that really could use more info. So this is a really good one. And this one is like a cousin to bull sharks and sandbar sharks. It's a classic shark. So if anyone's interested in working with a classic shark, like that classic build, like graceful shark is an excellent candidate. And you get to go to Australia. So it's just like, or unless you live in Australia already. But yeah, it's really, really cool. So, oh my gosh. Let's see. I think since it's 9:45, we might do. And for anyone who wasn't here right at the top of the stream, I've pulled up the International Shark Attack file because when I was kind of preparing for tonight, I didn't realize how little information there was on the graceful shark. So there are papers that we can go into, and I think we will if we have some time. But I also kind of thought simultaneously this might be a really good night to take a look at the Shark Attack file because Carcharhinus species are in it. And there have been a couple species we've talked about lately that have been listed on the file, which has kind of got me thinking, it'll be good to check it out. So, Minja's making me want to become a shark scientist. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's really cool because sharks are so charismatic. I feel like it can be a little intimidating to imagine working with them because they're just so charismatic. There has been a lot of research. They do get Shark Week every year, but I find it so reassuring and comforting to see like, oh my gosh, we actually literally still don't know a lot about them. Like there's a few species like that get a lot of coverage, but there's quite a lot of sharks that really just don't. Kind of as for case in point, we have covered 70 species on this channel, 70 species on this stream, and that is about 14% of the biodiversity. So we've only hit 14% that we know of total shark biodiversity, which is unbelievable. So 70 species, and we still have a long ways to go. So. But yeah, so lots of opportunity with sharks, which I really love, and it's really cool to be. It's 2024, and still so much opportunity, especially since like I think shark science. Oh man, I'm trying to think of how old shark science is, because like technically you can say shark science began in the mid 1700s with like Linnaeus and taxonomy. But as like a field, I would say the late 1800s, early 1900s is probably the beginnings of the people who started to focus on the ocean and maybe sort of sharks, kind of. And then I would say maybe the early 1900s, like the 20s and the 30s, like early 1900s. That's when you start to get like maybe that first generation of scientists, if you will. And then mid 50s, more established procedures, more established bodies of like shark research. And then like the 70s, boom, like you start actually getting more of like an actual field, like shark conservation, shark biology, shark ecology. And then in pop culture, you get Jaws in the 70s, and then that galvanizes a lot of interest. And then the 80s, 90s, you get Shark Week. So, you know, like we've been with sharks for quite a while now, and like pop culture has been with sharks at least, or like the general public has been like very interested in sharks at least since the 70s, I would say, with Jaws. And still there's so much we don't know, which is so cool to me. So, but yeah. As far as the Graceful Shark, it's mentioned kind of like sporadically in different papers. So I think, oh, actually, let's read this one really quick, because this is species profile. I just want to see what this is. And then we'll hop on over to the shark attack file. Yeah, actually, yeah, we'll read these two, because these are species profiles, so they'll be pretty pretty informative, and then and probably a little bit short, and then we'll check out the shark attack file, because I think it'll be kind of cool to see. So, all right, so Graceful Shark. This one, Carcharhinus ultimus, is the big nose shark, but Graceful Shark. Let's see if there's anything new. 1 to 6 embryos. Here is, yeah, nothing really new on this. This is just the classic illustration. And that looks completely different from this. Those do not look, I think this is a silky shark or something. That does not look like, where was that even? This. That does not look like this. So, it's pretty interesting. Just how it just doesn't line up. Like the imagery doesn't line up. So. I love this. What is this from? Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides. I love this description. I don't think we've seen this before. A moderately large, tubby gray shark with short pointed snout. Tubby gray shark. And again, that does not line up with this. I think this is a silky shark or something. This is not a graceful shark. I can't see this being a graceful shark. I mean, I could be wrong, but like, it's just the positioning of this dorsal fin is just looks so far back. This is very far from tubby. This is pretty thin. So, I don't know. Let's see. Origin of second dorsal fin about over anal fin origin. Let's see. Fins usually black tipped. Coastal pelagic. Feeds on fishes. Predator. Yeah, not. Oh, and here we go. Here's a photo of it. Yeah, and like the dorsal fin is like near the pectoral fin insert. This one is so tricky. Oh, here's its range in India, which is the entirety of the southern coast, and that's it. So, yeah, this one not a lot on it. So. Tubby, yeah. Tubby Graceful Shark Truther. Alright, so let's go ahead and check out, we'll put a pin in the other Graceful Shark papers, and only because there's not a lot of information on the species, and I feel like we've covered a lot of papers lately, so let's take a pivot to the International Shark Attack file. So let me know if there's a particular country you want to take a closer look at, but the International Shark Attack file is actually run by the Florida Museum of Natural History, which is pretty cool. It ranges from 1580 to present day, and what's kind of exciting is I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it's not complete, because there have been records of shark attack in the bay that last time I checked weren't included in the file. They might be now, because I saw a updated Virginia record that included 5 incidents, so it might be updated now, but there was a point where there was only 1 shark attack known in Virginia, and I'll explain that one in a little bit, but because that happened in 2001, I want to say. I forget if it was 2000, 2001, or 2010. It's somewhere in the 2000s, but I'll explain that in a little bit. But yeah, so here is the main page of the file. It's kind of wild to see on the country level 2 clear contenders the United States at 1,640 shark attacks in all that history, and then Australia at 706. I'm a little bit surprised South Africa is not as high, 262. But still kind of there. But yeah, let's see. We'll kind of zoom around the globe a little bit. And let me know in the comments if there's a country. Oh, data in Greenland. Let's check it out. It looks like there isn't. And do you know what's kind of interesting too? There's not any information in Canada either. So no shark attack in Canada, which I find kind of interesting. Because I mean it makes sense, but at the same time there are great whites, but maybe it's a little bit too chilly for them. So that's pretty interesting. So no shark attacks in Greenland, none in Iceland, none in Ireland, which is kind of interesting. 3 in the United Kingdom, 5 in France, 6 in Spain, 13 in Italy, 15 in Greece, 26 in Egypt, 5 in Libya, 3 in Tunisia, 2 in Sudan, 5 in Saudi Arabia. Interesting. So it's kind of cool to see that, okay, United States definitely gets a lot. We'll have to break that down a little bit. Cuba's got 13, Dominican Republic 3, Haiti 4, Bahamas 34, Mexico 42, Nicaragua 2, Brazil 114. Brazil's pretty up there. I believe there was a list. I do want to kind of check out the Graceful Sharks range just for fun. India is 14, Thailand 5, Indonesia 11, Philippines 11, Papua New Guinea 48, New Zealand 58. Wow, that's actually a lot higher than I was expecting. Japan 15, China just 1, South Korea 1. Interesting. Pakistan 1, Iran 23. Wow, Iraq 8, Saudi Arabia 5, Yemen 2, Somalia 3, Kenya 6, Tanzania 4, Madagascar 3. Let's check out the country rankings. So, okay. So the United States, and it's not really surprising when you think about just how large the United States is. Many states can be comparable size to countries, so we'll have to break the United States down further. Australia, pretty interesting. My big thing about these two having the leading number of shark attacks is that they're also both leaders in shark research, which I think is that's an interesting correlation. Some of the best shark research in the world is in the United States, and as we've seen, some of the best shark conservation in the world is in Australia. So like a lot of Australian fisheries are very well managed. A lot of the shark stocks sharks that are endangered globally actually have a safe hold in Australia, which is really cool. South Africa, pretty interesting to see. Very famous white shark location, very famous surfing, great white seal location. New Zealand is surprising. I actually am a bit surprised by how high that is, but it makes sense because it's ecologically very similar to Australia. Kind of close in just being temperate southern Pacific waters, and until you get to the northern part, which is more tropical. Papua New Guinea, 48. Reunion Island. Where is Reunion? That's Green Islands. Mexico, Bahamas, Iran, Fiji. Ooh, that's a little scary. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Fiji's a little scary. Where is Reunion? Islands. There we go. Reunion. That is near Madagascar. Just interesting. Fiji's a little scary. Fiji has some very famous dive tours with sharks. So it has famous bull shark encounters. You can be on a couple reefs in Fiji and experience bull sharks firsthand. It's a little freaky that 23 attacks in Fiji. Egypt 26, New Caledonia 22. Rest just not as high. 11 in Puerto Rico. Interesting. Yeah, the rest not as high, so. Okay, wow. So we'll go back to kind of global scale. Oh, I guess I could have clicked the home icon. Let's check. 3 in UK. New Zealand has like the highest shark attack per person ratio. Interesting. Did not know that. So what I'm very curious about is if you broke down the United States, what is that going to look like? So let's check that out. And that is actually a terrifying picture. Look at that. That's actually terrifying because you can see one clear hotspot. So we'll start with good old Florida. 928 shark attacks in the state of Florida. Let's compare that to the global scale. So the next largest country was Australia, 706. So in wrong graph. Florida alone has more shark attacks than Australia. Florida's entire history of shark attacks is higher than the entire country of Australia. That's pretty wild to think about, especially when considering Florida is vastly smaller than Australia. It's also interesting to think about. Florida also has top marine labs and institutions devoted to sharks. And a lot of Shark Week correlates with Florida. A lot of the scientists that are on Shark Week are based in these areas. The most famous I could think of is Moat Marine Lab. Very famous shark research area. In Sarasota, I believe Moat Marine Lab is. So, but yeah, 928 shark attacks in Florida. What's freaky is that the breakdown's probably bull sharks and tiger sharks for the most part, because those are tropical species, but we'll get into a little bit more. Hawaii, 195. Let's compare that on a global scale. Hawaii is comparable to Brazil. So the Hawaiian Islands have, what was it, 195? More shark attacks than the entirety of Brazil, which is pretty crazy. California, 138. Is that more than Brazil as well? Yep, 138 attacks in California. Now, what's even crazier is, as you could probably notice, as exciting and sensational as shark attacks are, the total, how much is it? 1640 over a time period from 1580. So let's do the math on that really quick. 2024, 80, 444 years. 1640 divided by 4. So that's about 4 shark attacks a year in the world. So, no, actually, I'm sorry. That's the American total. What's the total? I got that wrong. But okay, if you look at America, okay, we'll just do. I can't see the total, but still, it's kind of a laughably small amount. Because if you look at America in the United States, the math is still correct. 4 shark attacks a year. If you want to tweak the math a little bit to let's just say 1776. Let's just do that. 1776, 248. So that was, how many is that? 1640. Okay. 248. So that's about 7 shark attacks a year in the entire country. 4 to 7 shark attacks a year in the entire country. So, very rare. Extremely astronomically rare. And especially when you consider, the classic examples of dog bites or death by mosquitoes or murders. It's an extremely rare event. So, Florida's kind of fascinating. I do want to let's check out Florida just as a state. Let me see when Florida was ratified as a state, just out of curiosity. So, although it probably would include pre-state. Let's see. probably would include records from before the state, but became a state. But let's just see. I'm just kind of curious about that. 1845. '79. About 5 shark attacks a year in Florida, roughly. So, at most. It's so interesting. Like, again, it's such a rare thing, but yeah. But yeah, so let's see the next couple states, and then the last part of this is we'll check out the species, which species are implicated in the most attacks. So Alaska, no shark attack, makes sense. Hawaii 195, California 138, Oregon 29, Washington 2, Texas 45, Louisiana 5, Mississippi 2, Alabama 10, Georgia 17, South Carolina 118. Wow, that's actually pretty wild. I have a lot to say about that, actually. North Carolina 80. Wow, that's actually kind of high. Virginia 5. Only 5 in my home state. Maryland 2, Delaware 5, New Jersey 16, including the famous Jersey Shore attacks. New York 24. That's actually kind of wild that it starts to rise up here. Connecticut 1, Rhode Island 2, Massachusetts 6, Maine 2. So it's pretty interesting to see why do certain areas have higher numbers of shark attack than others. So for Florida, Florida is like a shark stronghold as far as the United States go, because you have a lot of resident populations of dangerous species like bull sharks. And then said bull sharks do take summertime migrations up the coast, but they don't go super, super far, so they come back down. Some of them don't migrate at all and just live year-round in Florida. Similarly, there's tiger shark populations that do migrate up the coast and then come back down, but for the most part, they kind of, they can be residential in Florida or in Florida waters. For the Gulf Coast, it kind of makes sense that the attack numbers are proportionally a bit higher because these are warmer waters with probably more residential populations of sharks. Of this area, Florida is the only state that touches the tropical Atlantic or the tropics, so that's a part of it as well. For South Carolina does have a lot of shark estuaries and murky water. It's a big meeting place for tiger sharks and bull sharks. North Carolina, kind of similar. Virginia is interesting because the Chesapeake Bay is the northern limit of a lot of warm water species. So that could be a factor in terms of why Virginia's attack numbers are very low. It's interesting that it starts to get up higher again in New York and New Jersey, and these are kind of areas where you get more seal populations. More so like in Massachusetts now, but this is getting into the colder water, which is a higher amount of seals and higher amount of white sharks. So this is more like great white shark country. Similarly, California, this is cold temperate waters that are have a lot of sea lions. So this is also a big white shark zone. Oregon, not so much. Washington is interesting that there's only 2 because Washington is famous for killer whales. And killer whales famously predate on great whites or a lot of other shark species. So one kind of theory as far as like why Washington has so little shark attacks is because resident pods of killer whales deter sharks. Like they just don't, like sharks do not want to be in areas where there's orcas because orcas eat them. So it's kind of cool to see these patterns, kind of like this gradient in terms of like, yeah, these are not these places are, sufficiently like far away from each other, but like it's kind of cool to see a gradient where when you go up the coastline in the Pacific, the likelihood of a shark attack decreases when you go up, and partially because great white shark's favorite prey item is in California, but then also orca whales spend more time up north and they deter the great white. And then for the Atlantic, Florida is shark stronghold. Like there's a lot of resident populations of dangerous species. They make their summer migrations up the coast. Chesapeake Bay is a northern limit for a lot of species, and some species don't really. It's not common to see bull sharks or tiger sharks as far up as Massachusetts. It's possible, but it's not common. And then simultaneously, great white sharks come down here because there's seals here. So it's kind of cool to see just the geography of it and to kind of see how it works. So, Howard, yes, tourist zones encroaching on shark habitat. That is an excellent point too. So, Florida probably offsets the entire worldwide statistics. Yeah, yes, that's true. But Howard, that's an excellent point because Florida, I mean, that is vacation central. When you think about things like spring break, where do people go for spring break? They don't like in April, like March, April, May. Although I think spring break is just like April, like March, April, really. But like for March, April, the north is still extremely cold. So for vacation to get that kind of spring break experience, people go to Texas, a little bit on the Gulf Coast. I think mostly Texas, but there's nothing that compares to Florida. Like Florida famously, I think Florida made the news this year. Was it Miami that started to do curfews for spring break, and that created a whole mess there. But Florida is like the spring break destination, like of the world, or not the world, but like the United States, like North America. It's like a huge spring break destination. And like between like Disney, between the beaches, between like the Keys, like it's just like Howard said, there's a huge incentive to vacation in Florida. And with that incentive and that demand and that drive, there's more resorts, there's more like beachfront housing, there's more like, just activity in the area. So part of this is Florida's ecological proximity to like the shark strongholds. But another part of it is also exactly what Howard said, is more development, like more human presence encroaching on shark habitat. South Carolina, it's interesting. There's a lot of resort areas in South Carolina. I actually, when I grew up, my grandparents would be in some of these areas and invited us to be there. There's quite a few in South Carolina. The famous ones are like Myrtle Beach, but there's also like Fripp Island. Nearby in North Carolina, there's like Bald Head Island, the Outer Banks, areas that do attract a lot of people in the summer, that do have a lot of development. A lot of people like living on the water or vacationing on the water. So, and what's interesting is that Virginia, we have Virginia Beach, which is probably our most famous shark attack, unfortunately. It's because it's a really sad incident. I think it was, and I kind of don't want to like recount it on the stream just because it is searchable, because it's just kind of like a I don't want to sound like, I don't want to be callous for, it was like a family incident with a bull shark in, I think it was Southern Virginia Beach, potentially Sandbridge, but really really sad. That is the last shark attack that we've had in this state, and in a state where shark attacks are extremely rare. But between Virginia's climate, where again the Chesapeake Bay is the northern limit for a lot of species, and it gets cold in the winter. And then also, so it's not really a big bull shark. I mean, bull sharks do occur here, but it's not like they're a big spot for them. So between that, and then also the fact that Virginia Beach does get a lot of summer activity, but and it is a resort area, but it doesn't have the same level of development as like the Carolinas or Florida or Texas, like the same level of development or draw. Like it's not the same kind of vibe. So New York and New Jersey are pretty interesting because part of that could be great whites, but we're entering into great white country. Part of it, though, could be the high population density, because the coastal areas of New York and New Jersey, some of the most densely populated areas in the world. So the possibility or probability of a shark attack could be just higher by nature of the insane population density in the New York City area. So which touches Long Island or Long Island Sound, and New Jersey is part of that as well. So it's interesting to see that Connecticut, by comparison, just one shark attack, Rhode Island 2. Massachusetts 6 is interesting because now this is becoming a very big great white area. And I think what's happened is that there's a higher great white presence, but with that, I feel like there's been very good management or acknowledgement of like, hey, these are beaches that are closed. I feel like there's a very responsive shark. What do you call it? I feel like there's a very responsive team for monitoring great white shark activity in Massachusetts because I'm pleasantly relieved that there hasn't been an incident, as far as I know, in Massachusetts so far, with the reintroduction or with the conservation efforts to bring seals back, and with the new interest like that white sharks have in that area. I feel like whoever's involved in beach safety is doing a really good job of like monitoring where the sharks are and kind of like being very proactive in terms of like warning people, don't go in the water. This is great white area. So, but yeah, just catching up on the comments. Howard, Florida has the largest beach exposure. That's true. That's true. And then also, like Florida, it's kind of like, I don't think there's it's very hard to get like open coastline. It's like everything is so interconnected. There's no, I forget if I talked about this before, but like when I used to live in Florida, that was something that kind of like kind of bothered me personally, where it's a beautiful state in a lot of ways, but it was hard to find quiet places. It was hard to find parks where like nobody is really there. And Virginia, by comparison, has quite a few places where you can find that solitude. There's quite a few places in Virginia where you can be in like even an oceanside park and you can actually be alone, which is really cool. I really love that. I love kind of being in more wilderness areas. And in Florida, it was really hard to get that because so much of the shoreline is developed, and everything is interconnected. There's no, unless you're in like in the Everglades, there's so many things are just like, it's just so easy to get from one place to another because it's just a flat panhandle. It's like a flat peninsula, so there's no like mountains or like bridges. I mean, there's some bridges, but like it's relatively easy to get from one location to another. So, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like ecologically, it's an amazing state. But like, it's hard to find like solitude. It's possible, but it was hard for me when I lived there to find like super quiet areas. So, I appreciate that, Minjas. I didn't even stop to think about how Florida's literally a peninsula. That's a good point. Actually, you know what? I didn't even think about that either because I was just thinking about development. But that's an excellent point. So yeah, let's compare shorelines really quick. That's an excellent point. Yeah, so that's a huge factor. And I apologize, Howard, because like I just realized that might have been what Howard meant. I thought I interpret it as opportunity for like, it's like every beach has a resort basically. So every beach has a reason for people to be there. I interpreted that, but you're both absolutely right. I my brain totally kind of totally didn't register the fact that Florida's a peninsula. Like, so it's surrounded on three sides by water. When you compare it to Mississippi, of course Mississippi has two. It's got one little stretch. Alabama. Now this is interesting. Alabama has 10, and it has even less area than Mississippi. That's kind of interesting that there's a difference between them. But yeah, surrounded on all three sides by water. Hawaii surrounded on all four sides by water on its islands. And I'm curious about Hawaii's shark attack activity because I believe that is mostly tiger sharks is like the big culprit in Hawaii. So, but let's see. California has a huge coastline. Oregon and Washington not as big, but again, Washington, I'm pretty sure that's an orca thing. I'm pretty sure orcas are a natural deterrent for white sharks. So, Virginia has a pretty complex embayed coastline. North Carolina has a pretty large shore area as well. Not as large as Florida, but it does have a large shoreline area. If you added the Carolinas together, that's going to be 198, so nearly 200 shark attacks. Still not comparable to Florida. I don't know if anything is, actually. If you added... How many states do you have to add? Yeah, actually, if you added every single state, it's like Florida and the rest of the country. Like, wow, that's actually kind of that's honestly insane how high the shark attack numbers are. That's crazy. All right. So our last little foray on the International Shark Attack website, or International Shark Attack file, is we're going to take a look at the species. And I kind of want to do this. Let's do... How do we sort this? Okay. Non-fatal, unprovoked. Fatal, unprovoked. Total. Okay. Alright, so I kind of want to go from least to most implicated, because I just think it's pretty interesting to take a look at this, and we'll kind of build up. Honestly, I've mentioned it before, there are 4 species in particular that I think you consider as dangerous, and the rest are just kind of weird incidents. So, yeah, we'll get started. Thank you, Ventus. Yeah, that's too. More reason for there to be tourists and locals. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I think it's both. I think it's both the surface area exposure of the state, and thank you guys again for pointing that out, because that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I think it's all 3. It's the surface area of the state, just the unique peninsula shape. It's the ecology of the state, where it is a area with resident dangerous shark populations. Other areas have migratory sharks, but Florida has resident sharks, along with migratory sharks. And then finally, huge draw for an unusually higher amount of people, for both local and residential and tourist. It's huge, unusual draw compared to other states. So for shark attacks, let's see, the taupe shark, freak incident, small species, Port Jackson shark. How does that even work? Like, the cute, chubby-cheeked Port Jackson shark apparently is implicated in a non-fatal, unprovoked attack. So, brave, chubby-cheeked Port Jackson shark. Leopard shark, beautiful California species. Guitarfish, which is not a shark. I guess we're including that. I don't even know how that works, because the jaws of that ray are on the underside of its body, so I'm not sure how that works. Oh! Atlantic angel shark, or the sand devil, Squatina dumeral. Interesting. That's one of our local species. That's actually... This sounds horrible. I mean, I'm glad it's not fatal, so I'm kind of proud of that. I don't know. Sand devil, like, angel sharks are feisty. Angel sharks are, like, they may be small, but they bite. That's also part of the reason why it's called a sand devil. It has a really nasty reputation for biting, so it's kind of cool to see it on there. Interesting. The poor beagle, Lamnanasis, 2 non-fatal attacks. Galapagos shark, I'm actually surprised the number is so low on that, so that's actually really cool. First fatality, though, so Galapagos shark is involved in a fatal shark attack. Dusky shark, Carcharhinus obscurus. It makes sense because it's the largest Carcharhinus at 14 feet. It's a big species. It's a coastal pelagic predator. I'm also surprised that the number is actually pretty low. That's a low number. I'm glad. It just goes to show you that sharks are... I mean, like, it can also be an exposure thing. Like, it's probably not often you'll see pelagic sharks, but still, it's kind of like that's a low number, considering that species has pretty huge jaws, gets to a big size, has been known to eat like marine mammals. Pretty interesting. Silky shark, 3 unprovoked bites. Interesting. The woebegone, the ornate woebegone. I forget if the ornate is Steve Irwin's favorite, but Steve Irwin's favorite shark was woebegons. So it's interesting to see that they involved in shark bites. Oh, spotted woebegone, 4 unprovoked shark bites. The Caribbean reef shark makes sense. Like species that you can find often. The white-tip reef shark, that also makes sense. Those sharks are very placid. So it's kind of interesting. We know that white-tip reef sharks are very placid and don't really bother people. So I would say if they're involved in 5 attacks, those are probably freak accidents. Those are probably kind of like, I would wager maybe the diver did something not smart, maybe harass the shark a little bit, because white-tipped reef sharks are pretty placid species. So, or maybe there's like bait in the water or something. So it's cool to see this list, and it's cool to see that some of these species have appeared on this stream before. So Howard, I wouldn't want to be bitten by an angel shark. Yep, same. They are like, imagine like a swimming bear trap. Like it's just, yeah, it's yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. It's a funny comment actually. When they say unprovoked, it makes me wonder like what was the 100th 80th tourist that shark encountered that day. Yep. So that's a good point, because provoked attacks wouldn't be on here. So that's a good point that both are unprovoked. So both the categories in this are unprovoked. So the left column is unprovoked non-fatal. The right is unprovoked fatal. So yeah, I would say as far as scenarios go, I would imagine it could be maybe a feeding scenario, or like a scenario where a shark is excited by feeding and in the excitement bites a diver. So like swims up to a diver and then just like takes a bite, just in the feeding frenzy mode. I can see that maybe potentially happening. So because behaviorally, white-tipped reef sharks again are very placid, very approachable. So I would wager to say most of these are probably just kind of like weird incidents. So 7-gill shark. Now that's kind of terrifying because that's a slow-moving. Oh, that's the one. Wait, Nodorhynchus sebedianus. That's the one that is in kelp forests in the Pacific Northwest. Ooh, that's actually a little terrifying because those teeth are nasty. Those are like, the saw blade, like, ooh, that's actually a little scary. So, noted. It's kind of interesting. That's a slow-moving species. I wonder what the story is behind 7-gill shark bites. Sandbar shark, Carcharhinus plumbeus. I'm pleasantly surprised to see how low that number is, because, and it makes sense, sandbar sharks are moderately sized. They primarily go after fish. I'm really happy to see that they've never been implicated in a fatal shark attack, because like since they're coming back in the bay in May, I really do want to do some snorkeling in sandbar shark areas. So it'll be kind of cool to meet them, especially the pups. So it's nice to see that that's relatively a pretty harmless species. Okay, cookie cutter. Now this cookie cutter, this is where we start to get kind of like, okay, this is where we start to get deliberate. So cookie cutter, Icystius brasiliensis, we learned on one of the streams that they will deliberately swim up to people and bite them. Swim up to people and take that horrible plug of flesh out. And it's just, it's awful to think about. But that's a deliberate shark attack. That is not an accident. That's not mistaken identity. That is a cookie cutter shark, which is a pretty experimental species, like a generalist, an opportunistic generalist. So it will take bites out of like whales, fish, other sharks, underwater cables, and unfortunately take bites out of people. That's really freaky that they do that. So it's kind of cool to see it on the list here because it's like, okay, now we're getting into the territory we like deliberate. So the following sharks probably are deliberate, or not probably, but potentially are deliberate. So pretty interesting to see this assemblage. All right, mako, unidentified mako. So any of the Isura species. Makes sense that it's kind of relatively low because mako sharks are more so fish eaters, like fast fish eaters. The nurse shark, Gingilomystoma serratum. Now that one is interesting because nurse sharks are like famously lazy and gentle. I mean, like, well, not gentle, but kind of like that is not an active shark. That's not a shark that, like that shark, I would imagine that scenario for nurse sharks being involved in unprovoked attacks would be, again, potentially like a feeding scenario where it's like, say a diver is on the seabed and has a box of bait fish for dive tourism, feeds the nurse shark gets excited, swims up, gets the fish, but then bites the hand or something. Like that I can get. I have heard of nurse sharks biting divers if someone's foolish enough to grab their tail. Like you should never do that. And I've heard of nurse sharks biting people in response to that. But as far as an attack, I'm a bit surprised. It also tells you a lot that a nurse shark outranks a mako shark in. But then again, that's like general makos. That's unidentified mako. So I should probably wait because the mako shark might be implicated later. So Carcharhinus amblyrhynchoides, the gray reef shark, 1 fatality. That's pretty interesting because again, I've heard of gray reef sharks, exhibiting aggressive behavior. So. Howard, yikes on the 7-gill. Yep, absolutely agree. It's. I'm pretty surprised by that. That's their feeding pattern. Nothing personal. Spearfishermen are just a target. Interesting. Because like spearfishing, I feel like is getting increasingly popular, or maybe it's always was popular, but I'm seeing more spearfishing videos on YouTube. So, lemon shark, Negaprion brevirostris. Not surprised by that number. Shortfin mako, look at that. Kind of low. That's still pretty low. So shortfin mako, 9 unprovoked attacks, 9 non-fatal unprovoked, 1 fatal unprovoked. So the blue shark, Prionus glauca, yeah, makes sense. I think 4 deaths. Blue shark has been involved in 4 deaths. That's actually a little alarming because that's not a species people see often. So that's actually proportionally, that's a little alarming. So, by the way, it is 10:30. So please let me know a shark that you'd like to review next week. So we'll keep going down this list, but since it's 10:30, please leave any comments on sharks for next week's episode. So, and also happy episode 70. So it's kind of amazing to think we've done 70 shark episodes, covered 70 species. So really cool to be with you guys and do this together. So I'm excited for episode 71, and let me know what shark you like to cover, and I'll think of some suggestions too. I feel like we need something with some footage. I'm trying to think of charismatic species that may have that. Maybe some kind of cat shark, or a kind of woebegone, or a kind of carpet shark, or one of the new bullhead sharks, or some angel sharks. It's been a while. Actually, we have not done a angel shark in a while, and it's quite a few species. So random suggestions, and I'll catch up on the comments in a little bit. Look at this blacktip reef shark. 14 unprovoked bites. That's actually pretty interesting to me because I'm used to that being a pretty harmless species. So, now this is where it gets weird. Okay, oceanic whitetip. Okay. Yeah, I need to take a pause on that because this is where it starts to get really weird. I love that, Howard. Imagine the bragging rightsman, just awesome. Oh, thank you, Big Seven. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, woebegone. Yeah, let's see. Let's see which one we did last time. Because there's quite a few species to choose from. And I know we've covered one. Let's see. I gotta check the Orlectolobiforms playlist. We did the spotted woebegone. Okay. How about let's do the ornate woebegone? That's the other famous one. And that one is, hold on, ornate woebegone. Okay. Rectolobus ornatus. All right. Awesome. So next week we'll do the ornate woebegone. So the spotted woebegone and the ornate woebegone, and I guess the tasseled woebegone. Those are like the three very famous ones. So, but ornate woebegone is probably the most famous. So I'm excited. We'll cover the classic core woebegone species. So Orectolobus ornatus, the ornate woebegone, is next week. So yeah, that's going to be awesome. So. Okay, so oceanic whitetip that really stands out to me as odd because that in my mind is a dangerous shark. That is 12 unprovoked bites, 12 non-fatal unprovoked, 3 fatal unprovoked. But the USS Indianapolis incident, the famous incident that Quinn talks about in Jaws, a World War II ship sinks in the Pacific Ocean, and a lot of people were attacked by sharks. That incident is attributed to oceanic whitetip sharks most often. Oceanic whitetip is an open ocean predator. It's kind of like, I forget if it's like jackal. I guess jackals, like it's kind of like a marine equivalent of a jackal, if I understand a jackal correctly, like a jackal being like a desert dog that will zone in on whatever prey item it can find. Similarly, oceanic whitetips do that, so if you are in the open ocean, and an oceanic whitetip zones in on you, that's over, because it's like, the open ocean is like a nutrient desert. It's the marine equivalent of a desert. And oceanic whitetip sharks patrol the entire area. It's part of why they're critically endangered, because they're drawn to any kind of noise, drawn to any kind of like long line operation, like fishing operation. So they hone in on distress pretty accurately and cover huge ranges. Blue sharks occupy probably kind of a similar niche, and it's also interesting to see that silky sharks do too. And that freaks me out that that blue sharks had more fatalities than oceanic whitetips, because oceanic whitetips are definitely dangerous in my mind, and I should probably take blue sharks a little bit more seriously, honestly, because it's like, again, I mean, these are astronomically low numbers, but ecologically, those are two species that spend most of their time in the open sea and are drawn to like what little they can find in the open ocean. So, and it's interesting that they're statistically comparable on the shark attack file. So, I don't know, because I feel like this is too low for an oceanic whitetip, is kind of my gut feeling on that, but interesting. Oh no, what the heck? Spinner shark. Also, I just realized, I don't know if you can see, let me see what you can see on the stream. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're, yeah, Howard, absolutely. I'm going to start that comment, by the way. They can't afford to pass up a meal. Absolutely. So, Mingus, I hate that, how it's so good at honing on any possible movement, because that's drawn to stuff like underwater drilling. Yeah, absolutely. Howard, way out at sea, probably records it's scarce. Yep, yeah, that's a great point, because there's no witness to corroborate what species it is, so, and for maybe survivors of incidents like the Indianapolis, they may not really be, they probably weren't able to positively identify the shark. I mean, because to be honest, most people, like, they don't want to know or don't know the difference between shark species. So yeah, I think it's fair to say this species has underreported numbers, especially since oceanic whitetips also have eerily similar jaws to like white sharks, in the sense, like, I've actually confused whitetip jaws with white shark jaws before, because like whitetips have those broad triangular serrated teeth. It's not the same shape as a great white, but it's a little eerily similar to great whites, just because of that broad triangle, perfect saw edge teeth. So now spinner shark really freaks me out, because that is a small coastal species, or not. That's not a large species. That's a little strange to me. And spinner sharks, we covered them recently. This is one of the core species that kind of got me interested in reviewing the shark attack file tonight. Is Um, it's just as odd it's on there, really, to me. Like, spinner sharks are piscivorous. It's really strange that 16 unprovoked attacks. That's actually really odd. And these wouldn't be. I would imagine if someone was fishing for one, that's a provocation. So yeah, I don't really know how. I'm curious what the stories are behind spinner sharks as far as shark attacks go. Because I would not describe a spinner shark as a dangerous species, but bronze whaler I would describe as a dangerous species. Carcharhinus brachyurus. This is not a very charismatic shark. At least in the United States, because it's not found in the United States. But bronze whalers, I've always heard, are dangerous. Like solid. Like, yeah, you got to be careful. Don't muck with bronze whalers. So 1 fatality, 15 bites. Hammerheads in general, 18 unprovoked attacks. I'm kind of curious what species of hammerheads that would be. Great hammerheads are powerful predators, attain a huge size, but I can see them, scalped hammerheads, and maybe smooth hammerheads biting people. So look at this woebegone. 31 bites from a woebegone species in general. That's actually kind of crazy to think about. Statistically, twice as many incidents as the oceanic whitetip, but again, I think oceanic whitetip is underreported. Blacktip shark, 35 bites. Now that one, I'm a little bit more like, blacktips are very common. They undertake their huge migrations through Florida up to like the mid-Atlantic, including Virginia. And so they are in Florida, hitting South Carolina, hitting North Carolina. A lot of people at the beaches. I can see blacktip sharks probably just kind of like maybe nipping at people's like as they do their migrations. These mass migrations, the probability of maybe someone splashing in the water, drawing a blacktip shark, and the blacktip shark taking a bite is probably really high. So I'm not really surprised by that number. That's pretty interesting. Sand tiger shark, 36 bites. That is also interesting. Look at this too. There's no fatalities. I'm just realizing one other part of this, by the way. Lots of bites, but as far as fatalities, though, the only ones that are significant are the two species that occupy the open ocean, the blue shark and the oceanic whitetip. 4 deaths caused by a blue shark, 3 deaths caused by an oceanic whitetip. That's pretty interesting, because everything else, like even though these are high numbers of bites from blacktip and sand tiger, there's no deaths. So that kind of indicates to me that the blacktip and sand tiger, those could be mistaken identity cases. Those could be like blacktips and sand tigers nipping at people's hands if they're moving too quickly in the water, or taking a bite out of a lot of splashing. Those are both shallow water species that are drawn to like shallow coastal environments intersecting with people. So the probability of people and those species running into each other is probably quite a bit higher. And the risk of incident is probably a bit higher as well. So that makes, again, the blue shark and oceanic whitetip shark scarier to me, because the probability of running into them is lower, but the number of deaths is higher. So that's like, that indicates to me those are more deliberate. Like those are like more deliberate bites. So, and like those actually are probably like, you know, intentional, potentially predation bites. So that's actually freaky. So it's interesting to see. Another note about sand tigers. Sand tigers are very popular in aquariums. And so I'm curious if there is a good YouTube video, I believe, of an aquarist taking care of a sand tiger shark, trying to guide it into a pen where they can do biopsy, and then the sand tiger shark bit him. Like, it just reared its head and bit him. So because sand tiger sharks are so popular in aquariums, I kind of feel like that ups the probability of an incident happening. A lot of tanks with sand tiger sharks do have scuba divers who clean the tank or have to like corral the shark into a certain area. That could count as a provoked attack, but I can also see like the probability of incident rising because the proximity to sand tiger is unusually high. So Requiem shark, so any kind of Carcharhinus species, 46 bites, so very interesting. 5 deaths, so a Requiem shark can be the oceanic white tip, not really the blue shark if it's Carcharhinus, but it's kind of interesting. Carcharhinus lucus, the bull shark. Now, I'm actually surprised that that's such a low number, 26 deaths. Well, but then actually no. Let me rephrase that. Let me take that back actually. Because like as far as like incidents in the world, again when you compare like dog bites or murders, very low number. As far as a shark existing and swimming and everything, that is significantly higher than the other species. 26 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 26 bites. It does show you that, okay, there's something going on with bull sharks. There's something about them that is like, there's some intentionality there. The number of unprovoked bites is significantly higher too. It's significantly higher than everything we've seen before. And then the number of deaths is significantly higher, which is so interesting to see. For my understanding of bull sharks are generalist predators, generalist opportunistic predators. They will go after anything. So they've gone after pigs, dogs, dolphins, fish, and people. And I do think many of those attacks are deliberate predation events. And this is interesting. When people talk about shark attack, I get kind of like... It gets kind of tricky because like the obvious thing that has happened is that Jaws has really super sensationalized everything. And it created this movement of like, oh, all sharks are dangerous. All sharks will kill you. All sharks are attackers. And it's like, that's not correct. And then I think it created this counter movement of people kind of being like, oh, all sharks are like misunderstood. And all sharks are like actually attacking based on mistaken identity. You know, they actually are not trying to eat you. They actually just don't know what you are. And I actually think for a few species, that might not be fair, and that also might not be correct. I do think a few species probably should be given the same respect as a lion, or you know, like wolves, or like tigers. Like tiger is probably the best example, or polar bears, tigers and polar bears. Like I think bull sharks, tiger sharks, and white sharks, as well as oceanic white tips, should be treated the same way as tigers and polar bears, which, you know, we love them. They're amazing animals. They're really cool, but they will eat you. Like, they are man-eaters. Like, you do not disrespect or take your chances on these animals, because there's something about them that enables them to get into that active predation mode when it comes to humans. Polar bears deliberately hunt humans. Tigers deliberately hunt humans in the wild. And bull sharks, tiger sharks, and oceanic white tips and great whites, they're not evolved to hunt people, but they are evolved to be generalists. So they are evolved to handle what they can get, which is pretty wild to think about. So, and I mentioned this before, but those species have a unique dentition, like a unique tooth type and a unique size that kind of allows them to manipulate larger prey items outside of the range of other sharks, so namely marine mammals. So some of the bites definitely could be mistaken identity, but I don't think it's a good faith argument that all the bites are mistaken identity. I think it's absolutely fair to say some of the bull, tiger, oceanic white tip, and white shark attacks are deliberate, intentional predation events. So, yeah, but Howard, you wouldn't want to try to touch a wolverine. Yeah. So, let me know what you guys think about that, because like it's not a controversial opinion, but it's not a vocalized opinion. I feel like people are like one camp or the other, like, oh, sharks are like mindless eating machines, or like, oh, sharks are all misunderstood. And you know, I'm kind of like, no, they're neither of those things. Like, there's some species that are legitimately dangerous, but, you know, it doesn't mean they're, like, murder machines. They deserve respect. Is what I mean to say. So, let's see. Oh, Howard, small rafts escaping unsafe countries probably disappear into the ocean more often than we know. Good point. There was a couple, when I wrote the Bull Shark Compendium, there was a couple records of, or not records, but there was a couple places that mentioned underreported bull shark attacks. I could be mistaken about the location. I thought Lake Nicaragua was such a place. Bull sharks do have a resident population of a resident freshwater population in Lake Nicaragua, and if I remember correctly, I believe it was Lake Nicaragua, where there was an unreported amount of shark attacks, where like the community knew that they were in there, and the community knew that like attacks happen, but they don't qualify for the shark attack file because they're not corroborated incidents. So, yeah. Oh, Howard, yeah. Also at sea, you're much further away from medical help in case of serious bites. Yeah, it's so, like, the few times I've been out to sea, like, that aspect is so, like, it's cool, it's invigorating, and also just, like, humbling, where you take for granted what you have on land. Like, you take for granted, like, oh, if I get hurt, like, if I get bit by a snake, or if I had like a dog bite, the hospital is like, I'll get an ambulance. The ambulance will rescue me. And at sea, that does not happen. For the most part, you're probably okay because there's things like Coast Guard and stuff. But like, then again, if you're in the open and there's no network, there is like GPS and everything. Like there is like, I mean, there is a network between boats, and there's like, I believe there's like, I forget like how codified it is, but there's kind of like a rule, I believe, between vessels where it's like if there's like distress, the nearest vessel has to arrive. So there is a network of safety in certain parts of the ocean. But if you're like way out in like oceanic whitetip or blue shark country, it's like, yeah, it's that gets really real really quick. So, and then even though there's a network of boats, like I always think about that the few times I'm out at sea, like there is no infrastructure here. Like there's no hospital, there's no easy way to get back. It's so interesting. So. Oh, good point. Pelagic sharks try to maim their prey on the first pass. So, oh, interesting. Deeper ocean organisms are definitely unique in a sense they haven't lived as close to us as other animals and have been there for past several thousand years. So, while they may not have evolved to avoid hunt us, it doesn't mean they won't see us the same way as other prey. Interesting point, Mingus. And I think about that with Greenland sharks. Greenland sharks, the 7 or 6 kill sharks, like those are the big scavengers. But I would be curious about like if theoretically this wouldn't. Well, actually, with Greenland sharks, there's been rumors of Greenland sharks being something, because Greenland sharks do take seals, and they're not on the shark attack file, but I believe there's been stories of them being worthy of caution in terms of like they do dismember seals, they do take seals. So, and Howard, definitely agree. I'm going to star that. They all deserve respect. Absolutely. So, in some cases we are confused with prey, in others we become easy prey by our actions. Yep. Love that. So, definitely agree. So yeah, bull shark 93.26. So that's significantly higher. Tiger shark 103.39. So pretty comparable to the bull shark, honestly, as far as just a similar pattern of attacks, or a similar number where it's like that's a significantly higher amount of unprovoked non-fatal and unprovoked fatal. Plus, with tiger sharks and bull sharks, they're both warm water species that, at least in the United States, they occupy similar areas. So, and then finally, the great white shark, 292 unprovoked bites, non-fatal, 59 unprovoked deaths fatal. Now, just as I see these getting comparably more and more significant, it is kind of interesting to see that the great white shark, double the amount of tiger shark bites, double the amount of bull shark bites. Some of that can be erroneous in terms of, maybe people misidentifying the big shark that bit them as a great white shark. That has been a concern. The famous version of that is the Jersey Shore attacks, like the Matawan Creek attacks, where people said it was a great white shark, but the reality is the low salinity environment betrays that it's a bull shark. It was a bull shark involved in that. So, and I think a great white shark was maybe involved in part of that, but a bull shark was the primary culprit in those attacks. So, but what's interesting though is I kind of wonder if I should reevaluate how I approach dangerous sharks, where I've always kind of humbled the great white, and I've always kind of put it on the same tier as bulls, tigers, and oceanic whitetips. But that's kind of interesting to see statistically. It's a jump from the bull and tiger to the great white shark. That is actually kind of interesting to see how many more attacks that species is implicated in. And I don't know. I mean, is it more dangerous, or is there something else that kind of is maybe inflating those numbers or contributing to that count? Because I would think that the bull shark and the tiger shark are more common than the great white. Bull sharks and tiger sharks live concurrently with white sharks. They do occupy the same habitat. They're not as common in California though, because California is too cold. So that could be a factor inflating those numbers. Because like bull sharks and tiger sharks don't really go up to California that much, but white sharks do, and a huge amount of the shark attacks are in California. Let's see. How many again? 138 shark attacks in California. So, you know what? I think I stand by my original position. I think it's kind of splitting hairs to rank the sharks by dangerousness. I know there's a Shark Week program that did that, and that never sat well with me, because I'm like, well, it's all problematic. I can't speak. Statistically, it's all extremely low. It's all extremely unlikely. So it's kind of silly to rank shark species by the number of attacks, because the reality is it's like, I think it's better to rank them by tiers. Like you do dangerous or potentially dangerous. So dangerous being the white shark, the tiger shark, the bull shark, and the oceanic whitetip. We might add the blue shark to that, to be honest. I've never attributed the blue shark being a dangerous species, but that's kind of a weird pattern. It's just weird how similar that is to the oceanic whitetip. But anyway, so I think thinking about it like tiers, like the dangerous species and then the potentially dangerous species, is kind of a healthier approach, where you're kind of drilling down more on the shark's behavior. Like white sharks go after seals. Many of the attacks can be mistaken identity. White sharks are able to handle large prey with their unique teeth. Tiger sharks famously are the garbage cans of the sea. They eat anything. Bull sharks, like I just said, are opportunistic generalists. So those are species that I would say are fair to say are dangerous. But I think it's kind of silly to split hairs and be like, which one is the big one? Which one is the big baddie? Which one is like, more dangerous than the other? The reality is I think they're all the same tier of like, don't mess with these species. You shouldn't mess with any shark. You should respect all sharks, but do not roll the dice with these species. These are species that deserve respect and deserve the respect of like, that could kill me if it wanted to. So, they deserve respect in that way. So, but yeah. And Howard, yes, absolutely agree. Insufficient data to rank them. So, let's see. In some cases, we are confused with prey. Sorry. I saw that comment. Minges, as in they, referring to Greenland sharks, actively hunt seals. Yeah, I always thought of them as scavengers too, but it's strange that, like, I'm pretty sure I've read that they actively hunt seals. Like, they actively have gone after them. Howard, it would not surprise me in the least if Greenland sharks occasionally consume people. They're indiscriminate predators. Let's face it, if an Inuit hunter disappears, who would know? Interesting point. As far as, like, in remote areas where the Greenland sharks occurs in the far north, you know, many causes of death could be misattributed to maybe just, like, lost at sea or something. Like, I would say... there was an interesting story. Minges. But how else can I prove sharks are big and cool unless I show how to? Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that dig at Shark Week. I appreciate that a lot. So, because I love that, like, this channel and, like, our community, we kind of, like, we show that sharks are cool, and, like, I was about to say big and cool, but the reality is we celebrate the small sharks too. So. There's so much coolness about them, regardless of whether or not they can eat people. I'm just looking up something really quick. Greenland shark dive. I thought I read something recently that someone got into. They're okay, but I thought I read recently that someone got into a scary situation with a Greenland shark. Like, they were doing a film shoot of the species, and then it started to turn on the guy. Greenland shark has indirectly killed people by its poisonous flesh, but I thought there was something that happened recently. I know it's 11, so I'll wrap it up in a little bit, but I really thought there was something going on. Because it showed up on my timeline. Greenland shark, predator, prey. Alright, if it comes up again, I will send it to you guys, and I'll bring it up next week, because it's... I could have sworn I saw something recently where a diver was swimming with a Greenland shark and getting all this good footage, and the article was written in this cool way where it's like when the predator becomes the prey. So the predator, as in the diver, was, like, you know, filming, like he was hunting the shark, as in filming it, you know, and then realized that the shark was starting to take an active interest in him, and realized, oh no, like, this is a big shark with the tooth type to actually do some heavy damage. So yeah. Oh, I love this. Sharks can be rotund, small, big, chunky, or teeny, but they're cool. Agreed. Also, the sharks can be tubby, but they're cool. So bringing it full circle back to the Graceful Shark. Oh yeah, Minges, we did do the Greenland shark. What episode is that? Let's see if I can find that really quick. Greenland shark. I just saw your comment. That one is episode... I know we have it. Squall forms. Number 10. That's actually one of the Greenland shark. Dr. Jaws live. Number 10. So that was actually a very early episode, and I'm pretty sure Howard was on the stream at that point. Rory, I'm pretty sure, was on the stream at that point. Which is really cool. So early days. Yeah, so we've covered the Greenland shark, but it is up on YouTube, recordables or recorded. So yeah, but awesome. Well, since it's 11, we'll wrap up there. But I'm really glad we did take a look at the Shark Attack file along with the Graceful Shark, just because the Graceful Shark, it just was a uniquely understudied species. The articles that I was able to find, they're kind of like in that same vein of general shark conservation, in which the Graceful Shark is a part, like it's a species is observed in different areas, but there wasn't really a lot of information that's substantial or unique to the species, just because there's little that we know about it. So I'm really glad we did take a peek at the Shark Attack file. I had a lot of fun going through this, actually, and kind of learning more about who's on here and why they might be on here. And I especially really had a lot of fun discussing with you guys just the geography of the United States and the distribution of shark attacks, especially when it came to Florida. And then also just checking out the world, especially, again, in consideration of the fact that it's just so rare. It's such a rare incident, but it's cool to see patterns where it's over the entirety of time. The United States and Australia uniquely kind of lead as far as shark attacks go. So, so really interesting stream. A little bit different from what we usually do, but I had a lot of fun covering what we covered tonight. So, but yeah. Oh, interesting. Howard, several Greenland, good documentaries on Greenland shark, including prepping them. Yes, so there is a method to do it where you can safely consume Greenland sharks, but it's, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's a very complicated method. So, but it's a fascinating species. I actually really do appreciate that. Like when I was a kid, Greenland sharks were like this rare thing that we're just discovering, and then now they've really gained a lot of traction in terms of like there's more footage, more interest, more knowledge. It's a cool. I really appreciate seeing how Greenland sharks have grown in the popular eye. So, but thank you guys so much for watching. This was a really fun stream. Like I'm really glad we got to cover the. Why would you want to though? I agree, Howard. I mean, I don't know, like, is it in certain communities, is it potentially a protein source that made, you know, in an environment that's hard to acquire? Potentially, I'm not really sure. Like, I'd be kind of curious if, like, because, like, for example, like, we mentioned, like, Inuit hunting before, you know, in, like, environments where, like, or just Greenland itself, like, environments where it's like icy and like reeks of ammonia. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I don't have a counter argument for that part. So, yeah, all sharks. And by the way, for all sharks have a high. I don't think they have high ammonia, but they have a high urea content. So they're very unpalatable for the most part. Shark meat is not pleasant. So, but anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm really glad we covered the shark attack file and what we could on the Graceful Shark. And I'm really glad, even though it's not a lot of information on this species, it's still cool to see an opportunity to learn more. And it's cool to see shark species. It always makes me happy to see shark species that, you know, future scientists could study and like actually could build some work around, and we can find out more about them. So I just think it's really cool. And I think just, again, like, as someone who has grown up with like the 90s Discovery Channel, and it's like there's this excitement about discovery, and then there was this kind of, I feel like there's this period of like feeling like, oh, sharks are so charismatic, we know everything we need to know about them, there's little left to talk about because like things like Shark Week get more and more monotonous. And to go from that to what we've been doing, where it's like, wow, there's so much, there's so many sharks that just we don't know anything about them, and the biodiversity is insane. It's so cool. Like, that's a long-winded way of saying I really, even though there may not be a lot of information on some nights, I really enjoy those nights where it's like, there's opportunity, there's things that we could study, there's still undiscoverable parts of the world, even now, like even in this age of like, you know, hyper technology and AI and all that, like it's really cool to see that there's still mysteries as far as sharks go. With something as charismatic as a shark, it's really cool to see that there's still mysteries in the world. So love it. So, but hope you guys have a great week. Thank you so much for watching. We'll tune in next week for the ornate woebegone, which I'm pretty excited about. That is gonna definitely have a lot of footage. It's definitely gonna be a lot more information. It's one of the most famous woebegone species. Really fun, strange line of shark evolution. So I'm super excited for that. So, but hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next week. And yeah, just cheers, everybody. So take care, have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you soon with the ornate woebegone. But cheers, guys. Bye.